Last night, we saw the beginning of the January 6th committee hearings. And wow, no new information for the most part was revealed. There was like new footage, but it didn't really tell us anything different from what we already knew. Now, I will say they omitted a ton of information that would be particularly relevant for the American people. But I'm willing to bet that the ratings for the primetime hearing is going to be in the gutter. Tucker Carlson over at Fox News was the only cable network news channel that was actually calling out the lies and the manipulations. Surprise, surprise. So they say he's the insurrectionist. They say your side of the insurrection. Let's talk about the truth. The truth is there was a riot. It was bad. People should be charged and arrested for it. Most of the people who were on the other side of the building had no idea what was going on and were even let in by police. So it was a bad day. It was. And I think whenever you get violence like that, you got to figure out who's committing it and you charge them for it. That's it, regardless of your politics. Now we have AOC, probably one of the most, I just got to say, wow, one of the most manipulative and despicable people in politics. But hey, we got a lot of those people, right? I got to be honest, basically all of them. There's the kind of people that can succeed in politics are exactly this. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez cries over having to relive the moments of January 6th where she wasn't even in the building. She was evacuated long before anything happened. She's lying. She lied about what happened on January 6th. She's trying to gaslight people. And now she's got crocodile tears because she is a sociopath, in my opinion. I always get a lot of people who respond to me when I say it. They're like, Tim, not all sociopaths are bad. Yeah, I'm just saying that she has, look at her crying on cue and be like, I have to relive. She lied. Let me tell you, I won't bury the lead. She came out and said there was a banging on her door. Bang, bang, bang. And then she quickly ran into the bathroom. And then she heard someone go, where is she? Where is she? That's how she described it. Yeah, please. That's not what happened. A cop probably walked in and said, where is she? Because they were looking for AOC, because the building was being evacuated. I believe this was a full hour before anyone breached the Capitol. So no one knew it was going to happen. And they were being evacuated because of a bomb threat. They never figured out who planted those bombs, apparently. But I suppose we can only say fortunate for these people. For people like AOC, they were evacuated. Now, the rioters never got into the building she was in, which is kind of far away. There is a network of tunnels that connect these buildings, but there's also a network of streets that connect these buildings. So come on, spare me. There's entrances and security for these buildings. AOC was trying to claim, she actually said this. I was like, this is it, that they came for her. Yeah, it was a full hour before anyone breached the Capitol. So she was lying. She had ordered lunch or something. She didn't evacuate when she was supposed to. So the cops were like, what are you doing? You need to leave. Well, let's read the story. And then you know what we're going to do? I'm going to expose for you the lies. You know, it is fairly obvious, I guess. For most of you, you know it's lies. But I don't want to bury the lead. I'll show you exactly what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about this from the Washington Post. The May 29th insurrection. Demonstrations for George Floyd lead to clashes outside the White House. Oh, clashes. They tried to raise St. John's Church, the famous President's Church across the street. They set fire to it. Fortunately, police were able to put that fire out. Over 150 officers, local and federal, were injured in this series of protests. And these extremists actually set fire to a guard post on White House grounds. They were attempting to breach the White House. Now, here's what happens. Let's talk about the reality of politics. Donald Trump had his police stop this. And for that, the media memory holes what happened. Now, when Donald Trump tried to stop what happened on January 6th, and he did because he wanted to deploy National Guard, and that's been reported across the board, it didn't happen. You see, the Democrats and the police let January 6th happen. No, don't believe me. There's video of a man screaming at the police to stop them. Stop them. What are you doing? And the cops just stand there and do nothing. The police opened the doors to the building. Now, there were people fighting with cops. Absolutely. There were some cops trying to stop what was going on. What I'm saying is the overall security that day was lacking police. and they did not deploy the National Guard. And there's a video of a man yelling, "Why won't you stop?" There's actually more than one video. But more importantly, police opened the doors. A man was acquitted of the charges against him on January 6th because there's a video of the police opening the doors and then telling people they respect the protest. So yeah, it's a mixed bag, if you want to be honest. Now, what about these hearings? A peaceful protest at the White House on May 29th was marred when one man briefly clashed with uniformed officers of the Secret Service. That's amazing. Because here's the real story. Yes, at least 150 local and federal officers were injured during the first week of protests in D.C. Attorney General Barr said on June 7th, 750 officers were injured during the first week. So they got the numbers wrong. Right. A fifth of those was in D.C. It's really amazing. It's really amazing. We have this going on right now. Anti-abortion Buffalo Pregnancy Center allegedly firebombed. This is like, what, the fifth? Okay, but let's take a look at what AOC is crying about. I'm so angry at having to relive that footage. AOC tears up on Instagram Live as she recounts Trump's attempted coup following the first day of televised hearings on January 6th Capitol riot. My friends, civil war. I don't care. I will say it and I will say it again. The fact that there are hearings on January 6th and none on May 29th tells you everything you need to know. And they'll say, yes, but January 6th was the Capitol building. They tried to set fire to the White House. Trump was forced into a bunker. And you know what? They mocked him for it. On May 29th, the riots outside the White House were so intense, Trump was rushed down to a bunker. They firebombed a guard post at the White House. I believe they may have set it on fire, but I believe it was firebombed, like they were throwing things that were on fire. I could be wrong about that, but they did set fire to it. And they set fire to St. John's Church. They attempted to raze a historic church. And the media defended it. The media lied about it. Where are our hearings on that? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not surprised that we're not actually having hearings on that because, whatever. But here's what's happening now. The right. What are they doing? They're all coming out and saying, oh, the January 6th. Oh, the January 6th. All the right ever does is respond to what the left is talking about. That needs to change. Which, admittedly, I'm talking about AOC and January 6th as well, but I'm attempting to shift the focus to May 29th. Now, if I actually showed you the photos for May 29th, I'd probably get hit on YouTube because they're so violent, substantially more violent than what we saw on January 6th, that YouTube would probably issue a demonetization at the very least, or a deranking. Now, I suppose you can argue the physical violence between the police and the protesters was intense. People were injured. More cops were injured at the White House than the Capitol. No police lost their life at the Capitol. An officer died, I believe, of a stroke the next day, and they tried lying about it, making it seem like it was related. It wasn't. They said he was hit in the head. Apparently he wasn't. Or it was not meaningful. There was someone threw a fire extinguisher. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. January 6th was bad. But they're gaslighting the American people. And the best you can get is Tucker Carlson. That's it. Now, last night, what did we do on Timcast IRL? We talked about how the feds had arrested the GOP frontrunner in Michigan because we're at the arrest that man phase of civil war. That's where we are. You look at this. Crocodile tears of Ocasio-Cortez just having to relive that footage. You weren't there. You were evacuated well before any of this happened. The hearing didn't just replay footage, but they revealed new footage from that day, and they revealed new information, shocking information like how Republican members of Congress were seeking pardons before the insurrection, knowing what they were about to do. You see, they subpoenaed people to testify before the January 6th committee, and then they used that footage selectively, which is why anyone who testified before them you were played. It's why Steve Bannon refused. It's why so many others said, we're not going to do it, because they're going to take whatever you say out of context. So the best thing you could have done is said, the fifth. I plead the fifth. Because then all they can really say is they refuse to answer questions. Okay. They arrest Peter Navarro. The weight of the federal law enforcement apparatus is being wielded against those who are the political enemies of the Democrats and the establishment. And this is where we're headed. Multiple whistleblowers allege FBI is purging conservatives. I hope you're paying attention and you're ready for what comes next. You see, Matt Taibbi wrote about what's called the arrest that man phase of civil war, which is what we are entering. In it, he described that in many countries, when civil war breaks out, what you end up with is two vehicles speeding full speed towards a police station or something. The men jump out of the cars, run up to the chief of police, and both point at each other and yell, "Arrest that man." Then law enforcement has to make a decision. Now, what if the law enforcement is conservative? Okay, well, then they're going to arrest the progressive leftist. What if they are a progressive leftist? They're going to arrest the conservative. So, in order to make sure you win when the arrest that man phase kicks off, you purge anyone who might oppose you, which it appears to be what's happening. The FBI allegedly labeled conservative agents disloyal to America. In a letter addressed to FBI Director Christopher Wray, Rep. Jim Jordan requested the Bureau cooperate fully with the Department of Justice Office of Inspector General and with his committee during a requested briefing on the FBI's conduct in response to the January 6th protests. Here's what's going to happen. The midterms are likely going to swing Republican. According to Real Clear News, it looks like already Democrats have lost and there's nothing they can do. Right now, based on polling, Republicans will win. Just how much they're going to win, we'll see. Maybe things can change. But this still means that there are 2 years of Democrat controlling the executive branch. They are going to weaponize. They already have the federal government, law enforcement of the executive branch to go after their political rivals. Seeing a GOP frontrunner be charged and raided by the FBI, we are entering the arrest that man phase of civil war. Before the fighting breaks out, there has to be elite level conflict. In the first Civil War, I think it's funny that we call it that now, but yeah, that's true. You had a caning in Congress. A caning. A man brutally beat another man with a cane. So much so that the man became mentally traumatic brain injury, permanently disabled by it. Now, one side said it was not. He's exaggerating. The other side said he was disabled and brutally injured. It doesn't matter what is true. What matters, look, you have your side. Everybody has their side. What I'm saying is it doesn't matter what's true. What matters is just what's happening. The left is arguing, whether true or not, the right tried to overthrow the government. They are using the power of the federal executive branch of the federal law enforcement to go after their political rivals and arrest them for it. A frontrunner who would have been up against Gretchen Whitmer has now been charged with misdemeanors. They are using the power of government to stop their political rivals. This is where it goes. The next step, we are going to see more arrests. We're going to see surveillance and investigations. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing journalists and media personalities and things like that. They're going to start going after everybody. In the next 2 years, in order to stop Donald Trump from winning again, it's going to get particularly bad. But none of these actions will serve to actually help the left. These people in the FBI, potentially, I can only assume it's on purpose, that they want the country to collapse. And the reason I say that is, I am not the smartest person in the world, nor the smartest person in the room. I've read a lot, but, it's relatively surface level stuff. There is no way, in my opinion, that the simple solution here is that the FBI is just so dumb, they're blindly walking into a civil war. I can only imagine they want the conflict. I don't know why. But maybe it really is incompetence. I would be surprised by that. Maybe not. I don't know. I would be surprised to find out I was actually smarter than all of these people. Now, look, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of dumb people, and you're probably smarter than a lot of them. What I mean is the people at the top of, say, the FBI and the executive branch and the federal government, they have to have some understanding of what they're doing, right? If you start purging conservatives, those conservatives don't just disappear. When you start banning conservatives, they don't just disappear. What did I tell Jack Dorsey in 2019 on Joe Rogan's show? If you keep doing this, it will result in civil war. And then I said, I'm buying my van. I'm getting ready to bug out because of what you guys are doing. Now, I believe Jack Dorsey really was too stupid to realize what he was doing or just powerless to stop it. But what ends up happening is when you start censoring people and you're force separating them, the only result is going to be hyper-tribalization, hyper-polarization, and civil war. Now what we're seeing is the geographic polarization. We're seeing people advocate for peaceful divorce, and they've been for some time. Peaceful divorce can only lead to violent civil war, in my opinion. And we're seeing people say, you know what, maybe we should, federalize and let states have their own laws. Give people 50 different options. Now, that I agree with. But I still believe the end result will only be hyperpolarization and geographic polarization, and that's because it's inevitable. If we stay on the course we're going with the federal government enforcing laws against half the population who just angrily disagree, then people are going to lose it and violence will erupt. If we go towards federalism and say, okay, blue states can do your thing, red states can do your thing, then people start geographically polarizing, and then you effectively have two countries. And what happens then when at the federal level there are certain laws passed, federal laws, and one side disagrees? The blue side will say no, the red side will say yes, or vice versa. I don't see a path moving forward. Let me show you this. New 911 tapes show how man accused in Kavanaugh murder plot abandoned plan. Yeah, he turned himself in. A guy tried to kill a sitting Supreme Court justice. And it is not headline news. That's scary. Now, I don't like Kavanaugh's rulings. I disagree with him and his worldview. He's the guy who I believe, it's been a while since I was reading about this, but he's the guy who said, he was with Bush, favored warrantless wiretapping, saying metadata stuff didn't violate the Fourth Amendment. Like, the idea is metadata is more like what time you searched for something as opposed to what you were actually searching for. All of that is a violation of your privacy. But the argument was, if you leave your house, we can watch where you're going. You're in public. And I'm like, okay, I get it. But people expect privacy when they're browsing the internet. They don't think you're spying on them. They don't realize. But anyway, I digress. I don't agree with the guy on a lot of his rulings. I'm not a conservative myself. But somebody tried to kill him. What do we get? AOC is crying. Because people rioted at the Capitol. Okay. They went back to this man's home. It's illegal to do so. Nothing happens. They are committing federal crimes. They are protected by the federal government. And politicians are blaming Trump supporters for what's going on. There is already a clear separation. Whoever is holding the power of the federal government is wielding it. I shouldn't say that. Trump didn't wield the power of the federal government against the left. He could have. He didn't. They lie and they gaslight, and their cult believes them. Jimmy Kimmel comes out and says, Republicans aren't playing by the rules. Why should you? Republicans who are in the minority, who aren't passing anything or doing anything, aren't playing by the rules. What are they doing? Oh, and they'll say like January 6th, and it's like May 29th. May 29th, they tried to burn down the White House. They literally set fire to St. John's Church across the street and a guard post at the White House. So don't give me this, they did this and we are not. I'll tell you, I don't care what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter who's right. I think it's totally irrelevant to the greater conversation. What matters is somebody went to kill Kavanaugh. When the protesters illegally protested, Merrick Garland said, so what? When they came back after a man tried to kill a sitting Supreme Court justice, Merrick Garland said, so what? The criminals are in the White House. Jen Psaki said, we certainly encourage more of this in reference to those protests. That is incitement to commit a federal crime. And no one did anything about it. When federal law enforcement is not upholding the law and only upholding it against their political opponents, like Ryan Kelly in Michigan, maybe he did things wrong for sure. But if they are only upholding the law when it's used to be used against their political rivals, you're in a civil war, baby. You best start be believing in it. Okay, I'll actually quote the line. You best start believing in Civil War stories. You're in one. Federal law enforcement is ignoring federal crimes and enforcing the slightest against their political rivals. So where does that lead to? In the first Civil War, the South said the federal government is not enforcing the law against the North and only against the South. And so they said, fine, so be it, we secede. Now, I certainly think they were wrong. They wanted laws that violated the Constitution. Well, there you go. You can't claim that there are inalienable rights and then have slavery. And so the North said, no, we're not going to do it. But therein still lies a problem. You might not like what the South was doing, and I know I certainly don't. But the South said then the contract is void. Now, that's one thing that's true. If you have people trying to do bad things, you can't have a contract with them. And let's put it simply. The North and the South in the first Civil War, there was an agreement within the federal government as how laws were being passed. You cannot have an agreement with people who seek to enforce unconstitutional laws, period. So when the South was demanding the North uphold the Fugitive Slave Act, and the North said, we won't do it, I believe the North was right because that law violated the Constitution and the core tenets of this country and its founding documents. But that also means there was no pact. There was no contract with those states. If states in this country seek to do wrong, then you have no agreement. And it appears that's what's happening. So where do we go from here? I think we're going to head towards, if we stay on this path, you've got armed conservatives, libertarians, and even liberals. And you have a weaponized federal government. I think we're going to get to a point where it's going to be more like the Empire in Star Wars or something. The federal government is crushing dissent and being weaponized against those who oppose it politically. And I don't think it's going to be like Civil War the way you'd think with the North and the South in secession. That, I imagine, would happen if Trump wins. Then the blue states will secede. I think what's more likely to happen is you're going to see complete and total societal breakdown. As the federal government keeps enforcing the law only against one political faction, people are going to outright just say no. There is no agreement, and then people are going to start fighting. It's going to be like the rebellion. That's going to be the kind of civil war. I hope not. I hope that when the midterms come, Republicans win. I hope they actually start filing investigations, shifting the narrative, and restabilizing what's happening at the federal government. I hope they file inquiries and investigations into the DOJ. I hope they purge the partisans of any kind and just return things back to normal. Okay, I don't know. I'll leave it there. We'll see. Next segment will be at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.